And hello again to everyone. Once again is the segment where I answer your questions. The most important question that many are interested in is why coral fragment died within the first 5 days after receiving it. So the main reason is a significant difference in phosphates between the system from which you bought this coral and your aquarium. That is, if in your aquarium, for example, the phosphate level and the store from which you bought this coral has a phosphate level, then accordingly you will experience the death of this coral. With a probability of about 70%, why does this happen? Because this is a large difference of 0.03 and 0.0, or rather, and 0.1 is practically 3 times. These are fluctuations of 300%. And if in that system the phosphate was higher than in yours, then with a sharp decrease in the phosphate parameter, the coral dies. If the opposite happened, that is, in your system the phosphate is higher than in the store where we bought it, for example, if it's 2 or 3 times higher, then most likely the coral will not die. That is, with a sharp increase in phosphate, the coral usually has an adaptive response, like a system. It doesn't always die. Well, the chance that it will die is about 20%, but there's an 80% chance that it will remain intact and adapt. But if there's a sharp drop in phosphate, it turns out that is from 2, then there's a 70% probability that it will die in your system. Therefore, before ordering corals, inquire at the store about the phosphate level they maintain at the time of shipping. Not what it usually is, because yesterday it might have been higher or lower, and then they might have lowered it, and no one is aware. So you should ask how much. And it's even better to measure it before placing the coral in your aquarium. That is, measure the phosphate in their water, and accordingly in your aquarium. Compare them, and then the adaptation period needs to be made smoother. That means it will take even longer, or you might place it in another aquarium where the phosphate level is slightly lower at the moment, so you can carry out the adaptation over several days. And only then transplant the coral, this frag, into your aquarium, which has a chronically low phosphate level compared to the system from which you bought it. That is, clearly you should always take this into account. And it's better to choose stores that maintain the phosphate level. At the level, this is an average unit, meaning if it's higher, it's not by much, so not much higher, it's normal. Or if it's lower, somewhere around there, repeated 0.007, then that's a normal level. But if the store maintains an ultra low phosphate level, it will be very difficult to adapt them to the coral. Or if the store constantly has an ultra high phosphate level, you will also constantly receive corals that will die on you. And you need in turn to raise or lower the phosphate to average values. We recommend it at the level, let me repeat, 0.1, 0.07, something like that. So keep it at this level. This is approximately the phosphate level of all stores. This is the most important factor that will help you preserve your newly purchased frags. Goodbye, everyone.